happening tonight in Vancouver.
These are things that faculty, staff, and students were promised.
A UBC professor says the university failed to implement and enforce COVID safety measures they promised would come before the fall semester. Just ahead, students and faculty expressed their concerns and frustrations.
Conflicts over mask wearing on the SkyTrain has riders concerned. Ahead, what transit police say can be done to create a safe space for commuters.
And I think that's all our developers, that's all our businesses, whether they be cafes, restaurants, or retailers, or whoever looking for predictability, clarity, and speed.
They were created out of necessity to help businesses stay afloat during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now pop-up patios are here to stay in Vancouver. How that has businesses feeling.
This is City News Everywhere.
It feels like a real crisis of leadership, both on the public health side and on the university administration side.
A UBC professor is slamming the university for failing to verify student vaccinations, provide on-campus immunization, and more accessible COVID testing. He says the institution promised these would be in place by the fall semester. On August 13th, UBC President Santa Ono said there would be rapid COVID testing on campus. He said there would be vaccination clinics on campus. He even supported vaccine mandates on campus, but those promises have yet to be seen.
There's no way for a student that is unvaccinated to get vaccinated on campus, and there is no testing going on. So if a student is symptomatic, there's no way for them to get tested on campus. They have to go to one of Vancouver Coastal Health test sites. So basically they have to get on a bus while symptomatic and find a place to get tested.
Throughout the summer, Mauricio Drelichman was part of the higher level discussions at UBC to ensure a safe return to campus. Part of their plan includes an online mandatory vaccine declaration.
So 2 weeks into the term, about 1/3 of campus has not completed the mandatory vaccine declaration. And there is no rapid testing in place. And there has been no verification of vaccination status.
University spokesperson Matthew Ramsey wouldn't directly say what the consequences are for those who fail to declare their vaccination status.
I don't have all those details, and I'm not going to speculate on it. Like I said, it would be done on a case-by-case basis.
As for why there are no vaccine clinics on campus,
well, yeah, vaccine delivery is not the role the university plays. We have been hosting multiple clinics through Vancouver Coastal Health. They are the ones who decide where to locate those clinics. Also, we're not in a position to mandate vaccines. That's been very clearly articulated by the provincial health officer.
Meanwhile, one student who wished to stay anonymous to avoid repercussion from the university has started tracking COVID exposures in class because she feels Vancouver Coastal Health was failing to provide timely exposure notices.
I only post the things that get sent to me and that I can verify. But UBC and even VCH, they have far more qualified experts and scientists who would do a far better job at this than I can.
Vancouver Coastal Health was unable to provide a comment before broadcast. In Vancouver, Kier Junos, City News.
It has been a deadly 24 hours when it comes to COVID in BC. The province reporting another 10 deaths today and another 759 people for new cases. More than 1,900 people have now died in BC during the pandemic. The number of people in hospital is down slightly from yesterday to 324, but the number of those patients in intensive care is up again to 157. The health minister confirmed 93% of cases in the ICU are unvaccinated. After an outcry from BC parents, the province is reintroducing notifications when a student tests positive for COVID-19. When students and staff returned to school earlier this month, the province said it would no longer issue school-wide letters after a positive case. Only clusters and outbreaks would be reported. But after hearing concerns, Dr. Bonnie Henry says they've recognized parents do need an authoritative source to have an understanding of what's happening in their child's schools, leaving many parents relieved.
I'm just so grateful that they did listen and that they are now going to be providing more information to parents. I mean, this is critical information. I'm very happy that they were responsive, and there's more to be done to make sure that our schools are safe, but this is a really welcome development, absolutely.
BC is one step closer to making paid sick leave permanently available to every worker in the province. Since May, workers who don't already have sick pay covered by employers are allowed 3 days, but that temporary program expires December 31st. The province has passed legislation for a permanent paid sick leave to begin on January 1st. The Labour Minister says consultations are underway to determine if the minimum should be set at 3, 5, or 10 days.
I think it's the right thing to do because workers should not go to work when they're sick. This is one thing that we have learned during the pandemic. And as a result, we will be creating a permanent paid sick leave provision for all workers, all employees of employers in British Columbia. And we're going through consultation right now. And we want to hear from all the employers, all workers, their representatives, what model and how many days. So we will make that decision before December 31st of this year.
British Columbians have until October 25th to weigh in.
You'll find me switching between train cars if there's a group of people all en masse coming aboard.
A SkyTrain rider says he was shocked after hearing a woman was attacked after a confrontation about wearing masks on the train, but says running into groups of passengers without masks is still a common occurrence while commuting. Daryl Delacruz, an advocate for the Surrey-Langley SkyTrain, says not everyone has the time to step off the train like he does when seeing too many unmasked passengers. And it's even harder on a bus.
This is where I worry a bit because sometimes it's not very easy to get off a bus and expect one to come frequently, especially on routes in Surrey and Langley. And sometimes there's not much ventilation because the windows don't open. This is a bit of a sore point. I'd like to see some better enforcement on the bus system.
In one violent case, Metro Vancouver Transit Police reported a woman was assaulted Monday night after asking an unmasked couple if they had face coverings. Transit officers responded to 33 calls about passengers without masks from September 1st to the 29th. They say there's only a very small group refusing to mask up.
I was on the road last week and every single person I came across was wearing a mask.
BC reinstated its mask mandate for indoor public spaces in late August, and TransLink is issuing $115 fines for those breaking the rules. But transit police say issuing tickets isn't as simple as it was previously, when they could enforce the rules under the provincial health order.
There are multiple steps that the officer must be satisfied and go through before a violation ticket can be issued. You know, a first example is that they need to tell the person to put on a mask. And then if the person doesn't put on a mask, then they're going to be asked to leave the transit system, right? So there's a bunch of steps that they have to go through. So it's not as easy as it was prior. It was a straight violation ticket where it was, for the most part, given officers' discretion, it was pretty black and white.
Transit police were not able to provide information on the number of tickets they've handed out since the mask mandate was reintroduced. Some riders recommend calling or texting transit police when they don't see officers around.
Sometimes they are quite sparse, and I think that speaks to the limits and resources, but there have been actually a few times where the reports I've triggered have gotten the transit police officers to take some action. So hopefully that gives some reassurance that they are out there.
In Vancouver, Crystal Adaris, City News.
I mean, I guess it has to be counterbalanced with where the parking is. Maybe there's a bit of surplus parking and it doesn't matter so much to have to take a few spaces away. But I hope we'll stay over the winter as well.
That's what I was thinking.
Oh, even like in December?
Yeah, there's some that are covered and you can put some gas heaters in.
When you go to one of these restaurants, have you had any trouble with like parking or trying to find a place to park or?
I don't have a car, so I use car share. I mean, it's just like gotten people sitting outside, but also like I walk a lot of places, so I haven't had that experience.
I think it's good.
Yeah,
I mean, it makes the city more fun.
Restaurants and bars in Vancouver have been using pop-up patios to survive the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the city of Vancouver says this will be a yearly occurrence. From April 1st to October 31st, you'll be able to grab a curbside bite to eat. But there may be some issues ahead.
This year, more than 700 permits were issued for the temporary extended patio program, taking up space on streets where you'd find parking. The owner of Mana Sushi in Vancouver has been trying to solve that problem.
Curbside one, so I applied. I want to give up the second one. So you can park.
Right.
Yeah, you can let them, the drivers park there, and then you can get some revenue.
She's happy the program is back next year, but hopes applying for permits to make changes to her space will be easy to access after applying a few times this year.
2 times, so just I applied, but so I didn't know who is in charge of that. So I emailed her, but she didn't get any answer.
Just a few steps away is Bow Down, a restaurant that has its space in what was formerly metered parking.
There is quite a few other areas around here that you can park. Up the street, there's free parking. Along the other side of the street, we also have some parking there. And, during rush hour, it is a little bit busier. But we don't get many complaints about that.
The positive outweighs any of that, issues that we need to go through to get it going. Our guests are telling us what they want. And they want to be outside, and we want to accommodate them.
The Downtown Vancouver Business Improvement Association says the patio program has been a necessity, noting this is the time for the city to nail down requirements for businesses so they know what is needed of them.
That's all our businesses, whether they be cafes, restaurants, or retailers, are ever looking for. Is predictability, clarity, and speed.
This year, there were 516 patios in public spaces, with 75% of them on curbsides. City staff will be working in the coming weeks to figure out solutions involving accessibility and the shared use of public space.
In Vancouver, Ria Renouf, City News.
I would argue it's good. Maybe Justin Trudeau would disagree with me.
Canadians ought to get used to minority government as political analysts hope for more cooperation among the parties this time round.
A man charged in the stabbing spree in North Vancouver in March, which left one person dead, now faces additional charges. Yannick Bandago now faces 5 more counts of attempted murder and 1 count of aggravated assault in connection with the attack at the Lynn Valley Library. He was initially charged with second-degree murder the day after the attack, which left one woman in her 20s dead, with others suffering serious injuries. BC conservation officers say they arrested 2 people and seized a vehicle in connection with the alleged feeding of coyotes in Stanley Park. The arrests made yesterday, the same day Stanley Park was fully reopened to the public. Officers are stressing how unsafe feeding animals is because they get habituated to food. The park has been the center of dozens of attacks on people since late last year, including a handful of children. 2 men are facing charges in what Calgary police are calling a multi-million-dollar fraud case. It's alleged that between 2014 and 2017, the pair sold RV park sites fraudulently as the owner and operator of Sweetwater Resort at Lake Koocanusa in BC. Other names were used for the resort, including Sweetwater RV Park and Sweetwater at Lake Koocanusa. They also sold cabin lots and dock spaces. In total, it is alleged that one of them ended up earning more than $2 million from the multiple victims who believed they were purchasing legitimate lot and dock spaces. Despite some of the long lineups we saw on TV, voter turnout on Election Day was actually low. Preliminary data shows that about 59% of eligible Canadians cast a ballot. The last time turnout was that low was back in 2008, when just over 58% showed up to vote. Ballots are still being counted, so numbers could still change over the coming days.
The evidence from around the world, especially in Western democratic countries where they have sort of perpetual coalitions and perpetual minority governments, is that these things can be done and they can benefit the electorate.
Some of the final votes are still being counted, but Canadians are reckoning with another minority parliament, one nearly identical in composition to the one dissolved in August. It appears the mandate from Canadians is the Prime Minister should learn to play nice with opposition parties.
Whether or not that's in Justin Trudeau's temperament to do these kind of negotiations and this kind of reach across the aisle, I'm not sure, but it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward.
Stéphanie Plante says there are many examples of governments that work well with regular coalitions. Since 1990, France has only had 2 majority parliaments, and no single party in Germany's Bundestag has had a majority since reunification. Justin Trudeau will be required to work with opposition parties going forward, but Plante says that would be better for the public.
Those are generally countries where the economies are very good, democratic norms are followed. So I would argue it's good. Maybe Justin Trudeau would disagree with me.
For the NDP, for the Bloc, even the Green Party, having a minority parliament is a way to actually exert more direct influence.
Trudeau will need the support of another party to pass legislation, likely the NDP. It's something of an awkward position, as Trudeau called the same arrangement unworkable prior to asking for an election. But Bellon says there likely won't be any lingering resentment at the negotiating table.
If you had asked them and they had responded really honestly before the campaign, they would have told you they prefer work with a minority liberal government than with a conservative minority government, or of course with a majority government, regardless of what kind.
While Justin Trudeau hasn't spoken publicly since election night, it appears there is one policy plank he'll be able to move forward on: $10 a day childcare. It's a direct deal with the provinces and doesn't need legislative approval, except to approve some spending associated with it. Most of the provinces have signed on, and Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who was previously cagey about what he thought of the plan, now says Ontario wants in. In Ottawa, Xiaoli Li, City News.
Vancouver is the latest city to confirm it will observe the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, taking place for the first time September 30th. The city says civic facilities will be closed next Thursday so employees can reflect on the intergenerational trauma of residential schools and consider how they can advance reconciliation in their communities. Vancouver marks the day alongside the provincial government, schools and universities, and many other cities, towns, and regional districts. Vancouver's news is always available on the radio with News 1130 or online at citynews1130.com. Your next edition of City News is tonight at 11 o'clock. Thanks for watching and have a great night.